Hi, everyone. Welcome to CityClips. I am so excited about this episode. It's a special episode because we have a guest who just moved here from India, if I get this right. And it's been a couple years since he's lived here in Tallahassee. And just by being at a local event, I was introduced to Ravi VC and really excited to talk about his story. So, before we dive in, for those who are not familiar, City Clips is all about North Florida business and tech. And Ravi is well versed in business and has had experience with tech as well. So, really excited for today's episode. So, I hope you like it. So, a quick intro about Ravi VC. He has had a background in public procurement in India and has done business all over Southeast Asia. And he also has an expertise in parametric ideation. You're going to have to explain what that is.
Yes.
He's had success in building an information listing service as a CIO to 10 million subscribers, and he's helped close over $20 billion in negotiations for the public sector and 3 billion to 5 billion, give or take, for private sector prior to the pandemic. And of all places, he landed in Tallahassee. So thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your story.
Thank you.
And yeah, it was really neat to have met you. Actually, your wife walked up to me and she was so enthusiastic to just introduce me to you. And when you handed me your business card, it said Ravi VC. I said, "Are you a VC?" He said, "Funny enough, that is my real last name." And yes, I'm a VC.
Yes, it's been a running gag in my life.
Yeah. So, what brought you to Tallahassee?
Well, um, uh, kind of caught me off guard there. It's a funny story. I have a business partner who moved down to Tallahassee from Florida. Sorry,
A
from
different part of
Idaho.
Yeah, Idaho, yeah.
And he says, "You know what? I've been successful. I moved to Florida finally." And we were at that point exploring some new business avenues. And he said, like, "Why don't you come here? We'll just, do whatever we can. And that's when I found out there is a place called Tallahassee. I didn't know about this little city, and it's surprisingly enough, it's very similar to the city I come from. It's the state capital of Gujarat, and it's also either government offices or just colleges and universities, and basically nothing else. It's very similar climate as well. So we figured it's not going to be a shock to the system, when we move out here and see how it goes, and that's essentially how we ended up. And turns out Tallahassee has been mentioned in some funny jokes or SNL skits,
Yeah.
right? The guy who bullies Tom Hanks' character in Forrest Gump, he says he's moved up to a big city and says Tallahassee. And I realized that was a joke.
I didn't know.
So yeah, it's been a fun experience explaining to people what am I doing in Tallahassee. Yes, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I think a lot of people who moved out here, when they find out I'm from San Francisco or California, then the number one question I get is, why did you choose Tallahassee? And so a lot of times when I meet others, they'll say, oh, my spouse, my partner, a lot of it has to do with love, right? And so,
Yes, it is.
funny enough, you mentioned your partner's, it had a love story involved for sure, but we don't have to get into the details of that.
Yeah, yeah. He had fallen in love, madly in love, and unfortunately that didn't work out for him.
Oh,
And he quit Tallahassee because of that, leaving us here.
yeah, but still in Florida.
He's still in Florida.
Yeah,
Yes. He lives on the beach and he's happy.
that is a great place to land.
Yes.
So, can you tell me a little bit about your background? I know you mentioned you're from a similar town, and I can imagine the cities in India are huge, right? Small city there is actually a lot bigger than maybe San Francisco or New York. I would imagine population wise, but town population wise, when you say similar, is it much larger?
So it's kind of like this. If you go to Disney on a crowded day, right? What would be a crowded day is like a normal day for us. It's like what you see with the people moving around. That's like everyday walk. So it's kind
That's
of
what you're
crowded
used to
place.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more populous and stuff. And yeah, I kind of did move away from the city to be closer to a bird sanctuary. And as far as eyes could see, you could see all green and stuff. A few years later, and all the development started happening. Now, as far as eyes could, yeah, I mean, if you'd be lucky to see something, as a green landscape. All you see is concrete jungle, and it is a very fast developing country. And if you move away for a 6 month period and go back, you would see that a lot of things have changed very rapidly. And again, depends upon which city you are in or what type of state, what government is running the state, etc., etc. But overall, it's a very rapidly evolving ecosystem out there. Unlike Tallahassee, it's like, it gets pretty deserted during Christmas or when the college is out.
Yeah.
You could see that type of gap during the festivities. But again, it's a densely populated area. You would probably not find people living in with so much space around. So that's a huge difference here and there.
Did you see yourself ever going into procurement? Like, do you have a tech background? Were you going to go into tech? Like, was it accidental you landed in the public sector?
Yes, it was mostly, where the job opportunities were. And I had given out interviews in 4 different companies by the time I graduated. And I did land the jobs in 4 of them. This one I chose because it just had a better office and the boss was wearing better shoes. He spoke in a slightly more professional way compared to other people. I didn't know I was going into a procurement related field. I had an idea of what the company was. It was called a Sincerity. And the family that I come from, my mother's side of the family, they were heavily into business to the government, and they were contractors, what you would call as AA or AAA class contractors. And growing up all my life, and I would have heard about, them filing on tenders and putting up, having to submit the bills and corruption that was going around in that space. So that was a regular part of the conversation that I grew up around. And once I stumbled into that space, I was like, hey, what are we doing? They said, you know what, in the purchase process, there are a lot of corruption. I say, yeah, I know about that. So we are going to put systems that will prevent that from happening. I was like, okay, sign me up. So where do I start? So the system that effectively we implemented was using high-end encryption, which was a pioneering activity that we did. We were the first to roll it out. So something called as PKI, Public Key Infrastructure. And it did not allow someone to actually look into who has bid what. Your data was encrypted. We introduced biometric timestamps back in 2004. So that was a pretty advanced level of activity for that time. You have your biometric sign-in right now in the phones and other things. So we were doing it how many years ago? 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting area that we worked on. Again, those were dial-up connection days. A lot of resistance from vendors would be there because they need to upload a lot of files, which could take days for them to upload. We had to innovate process, re-engineer process to accommodate all kinds of, heavy duty activities in public procurement aspects. And largely it depended upon, how you receive the data from vendors, and you kind of, keep the secrecy in the process, meaning which there is no cartels forming. And lack of information would make it difficult for cartels to actually succeed in whatever they were doing, right? The information only became available to them once the due process was kicked in, and it was part of the procedure and transparency and everything that was there. So this was where I started my career, and it was a pretty interesting, passionate, area for me to work on. So I wasn't looking at it as a job or anything. It felt like, I'm taking revenge for my family. So yeah, you want to be corrupt, good luck doing that. Yeah, everything I can do to make your life miserable is what I did. And yeah, the government officers who were corrupt or the vendors who were trying to corrupt the system, they could not succeed. And
Wow.
that's something that I was particularly proud of.
Yeah.
When I see them, be very angry that hey, I can't influence it. Like yeah, sure. I go back home and sleep nice.
So the deals I mentioned earlier, there was no taint in a sense.
Yes, what happened is, one state I managed to convert 90% of the purchases to go online. Now, when that happened, the value of purchases above roughly around say $1,200 were all taken online. Even in departments that did not have proper connections, broadband connection were coming up at that time. So even without any broadband connections, they would be mandated to do purchases online. And when the purchase moved online, the aspect of being able to influence or have corruption being a part of the game during the process of purchase were eliminated, and that stayed that way for a long time. I think it still is the case. They do about $5 billion year on year, I suppose. It's just very difficult to influence the process till the time the bids are opened. So when the bid is open, the lowest bidder and the highest qualifier, T1 is to L1, is an ideal scenario that is technically the most competent, and the lowest bidder is the one that is likely to win the bid. And the process has it like, if you are that person or if you're that company, the government cannot, have conversation with somebody else. They need to work with you. As long as that sanctity of the process was maintained, this was something that we were very successful in doing. We've only had about 4 or 5 competition across the country, and since we were the first to introduce the PKI in the process, later on government across the country started introducing PKI in purchase process. So that in a way influenced the national purchase procedures. And about 10-15 years later into the fray, government itself came up with their own platform, making this product obsolete. But we had multiple other verticals within the operations. So we
Yeah.
were okay.
Is that what led you to the information listing service?
The information listing service was already there. It
Okay.
was the main profit center that allowed the procurement operations to happen. The procurement operations that we did at the price we did, those were loss leaders. We really weren't making much profit from that operation. So information listing is anyone who is looking for participating in government bids or government opportunities, they would subscribe. And the way the story happened is the company founder, he had this idea of doing what is called as a clipping service. Now, he would basically go and knock on doors, ask what topics of news they would like to read, and he would go back, collect all the newspapers, clip them, and then put them in a nice folder, and then go around delivering those. What he eventually found was maximum demand was for tender information, that is government bid notices, and he took that and then pitched to a company which was called Appletech. It was one of the first 100 companies to reach CMM level 5, and started by an ex-Intel gentleman.
Level 5 as in like
So CMM has level 3, level 5, CMM I is there. So it's capability maturity model
okay.
for IT companies, and it has a lot of, it's kind of like your ISO quality management.
Okay.
If you have to compare or make a draw a comparison, it's very procedural. It's for how do you build a software, how do you maintain the knowledge base within the software, how do you go about testing it, etc., etc.
Like quality level.
Yeah, it's a complete governance framework, and it's also a standard. So that was one of the companies, and he managed to pitch to them, and they kind of said like, okay, we'll sponsor. So that's how Appletech Tender City was created. So he became the CEO there. He managed to get some staff in, and there was no turning back after
Yeah.
that.
And I know you've mentioned in prior conversations you've had 3 monopolies
Yes.
right? So one of them is the information listing
Yes.
service. And what was the other two?
Second one was in public procurement itself. The
Public
entire
procurement.
state of 90% was converted by us.
Okay.
And we actually had a collaboration with the public sector unit, semi-government body, and they, by law, cannot be competed against. So a private sector company cannot compete with that company. So by default, we had the whole state, and that's the second one. Third one was in what you call as non-performing asset. It was with banks. So there was a push to fix all the bad debts that was in the country across all the nationalized banks. And these were like 60-year-old, 70-year-old mistakes.
And this is India.
This is India,
Yeah.
right? So we ended up doing close to 33,000 auctions on non-performing assets, and we were also part of government circular. So that's third monopoly we had. So that's a pretty large operation, but the way it came about was an interesting story. These things basically starts as a concept, right? So we had a director for strategy and business development. He had an idea that what, we have this millions of subscribers, and they are all companies, B2B companies. Why don't we just go out and then find out what they have as a problem and try to resolve it? So he thought it would be something called as B2B or Supply Tiger. That was a brand we were going with. Idea was to reach out to one company and say, hey, what do you have that is in surplus or is just waste? Maybe that is somebody is interested in buying it. We'll try to promote it. During that conversation, what came about was one company saying, I have this problem with the bank. I'm trying to sell off my assets or company itself. Can you help dispose the company? And once the conversation started going into that, we realized that we needed to talk to ARCs, or what you call as asset restructuring companies. And from there, it went into banking, and there were some legal terms called the SURFACE Act and among other things, which basically is what you go through before it is declared that your asset has to be auctioned off. So while we were in that particular space, it just happened that hey, you know what, you don't have to go through all of that. We can just go to the end point, tell the banks that whatever you need auctioned off, we can help you with that. And since we were a well-established company, we managed to get ourselves into the government circular. Once that happened, all the banks basically lined up with us. And, I'm talking about every bank in the country, which is under government law.
Yeah.
So that became a third monopoly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So were you pretty well known there in India? Or were you more of a private professional behind the scenes, like nobody knows that exists kind of thing?
So if there are 5 companies, I'm known in those 5 companies.
Okay.
Right. Outside those 5 companies, I don't think people would even bother to know what procurement term is.
Yeah.
Right. So if
Usually
you say
with
purchase, they would be like, okay. If you say procurement, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here. Being out here. But was it the banks that brought you to Southeast Asia to do business there, like that technology, or was it other things?
No, so by virtue of being in this particular space, we did do a lot of pioneering work. One of the things we did was 2G spectrum auctions.
2G spectrum auctions?
Yes, and
Okay.
those were built on game theory.
Okay.
So we kind of became one of the few companies in the world that had a auction engine based on game theory. So
That sounds cool.
the maximum sales price of a product is there. There is a mechanization on how do you go about identifying what is the maximum sales price for the particular product. Once again, this has some basis in game theory. Countries such as New Zealand do this for their dairy products, and the same procedure was also adopted in India for retailing of milk powders and other things. So we would kind of work on such kind of sophisticated purchase mechanisms. Then we did do a lot of stuff which was not done before we did that. So for instance, I personally have the distinction of doing the first reverse auction for a nationalized bank. In terms of dollar value, it will be close to about 110, $20 million.
That's a lot of money.
So it also was a project where I had the first hand experience of seeing an entire banking operation being completely re-engineered.
Yeah.
So it leads to a lot of knowledge and interesting talking points, which is of no interest to nobody. So yeah. So how did the bank change its interior placements? What was the design or thought process going behind the kind of chairs that were selected for whom and designations and everything? So there is a psychology behind that. I know that, but I don't know of anyone who is interested in knowing that.
Oh, it's still interesting that you're able to help solve the problem of a bank going under, right? It was about to go bankrupt or getting or auction, reverse
Yeah.
auction. So
So
it's like,
bank had lent money to a lot of people who have not paid them back,
okay,
and bank is
right.
forced to now auction off those assets.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we were effectively helping bank auction off those assets.
Okay. So you saved them a lot of money.
We would like to think so.
And you had a funny story too, because you were pretty young, right, doing a lot of these things. And so I remember you mentioned, weren't you going across country? You were, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
So
you should mention that because,
by virtue of what we were doing, we ended up becoming recognized as a subject matter expert, and my company would place me in some advisory roles. So I became a de facto subject matter expert in this field. We ended up advising government of Tanzania, Kenya, Bangladesh, and Malaysia. And in one of those trips to Malaysia, I was just coming back. The guy in the guy who checks the passport, custom officer,
yeah,
somebody, right? He looks at me and then he kind of starts,
yelling, you said.
yes,
Just yelling at you.
yeah. He said, like, what am I doing? What are you doing here? And I'm spending money on your parents' time, having party here and everything. I just looked at him. I was like, I thought, he genuinely thought he was chastising a young kid who was blowing his parents' money because I looked that young.
Yeah.
But I was there as a government guest. So I just took it and I was like, and I didn't know what to do. And I kind of smiled and it's like, yeah, we just should have looked up my age. And I was in my 30s at that time. He thought I was a college student or something. So yeah, I looked more younger than my age. And it used to be a thing that happens pretty much in every presentation I would do with a government office. You would have someone at a general manager level, senior level. They would be listening patiently, and then the first question that will come out of their mouth is, how old are you? And you'd be like, okay, I just gave you a presentation on how we are going to do this online purchase. What are you talking about? Yeah. But eventually, I stopped laughing at that question. I would just give them my answer. Yeah. So that was because it was pretty much of a early pioneering space for IT to penetrate to the Indian
Yeah.
market. They did understand that a lot of young kids were getting involved in this particular process. I do remember a conversation where there was a principal secretary level. It's a pretty high-ranking position within the government. He had called up, the boss of bosses in my company. And he said there is a young kid, sitting in front of me, and then he's talking about this. And I could hear the other person on the call. He said a young kid, and he mentioned the name of the chief of IT, who was probably in his 50s. And I was laughing, like, okay, no, that guy is in 50s, and I don't think he's young. So, but yeah, so that kind of oddities would be happening.
Yeah, I had some follow-up questions related to that. Like, did you feel like being young didn't work against you? But I feel like you naturally were great at negotiating and substantiating or validating your ideas and thoughts because these concepts are new to these older senior level folks.
So what really worked for me is that I lacked any other thinking. It was like I was honed in completely into what I was pushing. As I said, it felt like I was very passionate about what I was doing. And what I owe my success to is that I lacked any complications in my thought. I was very sincere in my approach. If I said, and I'll do this, I will move mountains if I have to, make it happen. And that allowed the people who were a lot of hesitance to adopting this it all came down to two things. One, what is their effort, if nobody's around, they have to learn new skill, they need to work with computers. They have never worked with a computer at that time. So for them, it's a burden, right, to be able to do that. So if you're saying that, no, I'll be there to support you, the second challenge is that can they trust you? Typically, the vendor level support would not be something that the government officers can rely on, or they don't carry a lot of trust, because a lot of commitments would be done, but then when it came to delivery, it will be lacking. They had that as a major reservation. In my case, I would just show up, as I said, if I'm running late, I'll just call and say I'm running late, when they would be happy to wait for me. So I managed to get their one trust, and that trust eventually became support for me. So they themselves would organize meetings for me. So one department, one location I was doing well, they would call in other departments and other offices. So towards the point where it reached a high, the what do you call it, a threshold point or inflection point, all the principal secretaries in that state came together in one room and had me present to them. And at that meeting, one stroke of a pen, it became that every department takes up the solution that we were selling. That's the level of trust I was able to gain and the kind of support I was given. If not for their own willingness to implement systems that were anti-corruption, I don't think we would have succeeded.
Yeah.
Right. So it came down to the leadership. Mine was pretty much of a minuscule soldier level. I was a foot soldier. I wasn't even a captain. So the credit was given to me. They recognized my effort. But it just is it's an above your pay grade kind of a situation when it happened. But I'm glad that I was able to be part of that change.
Yeah.
When we did that.
You've accomplished a lot at a young age, and that was pre-COVID, and it sounds like and it is the case now where you have something new, right? You have partners, and I even didn't mention this, but you are with GoGlobal101, right? And you have multiple projects lined up, and we won't have to talk about anything that can't be public, right? But talk about what you're working on now, and then I have some more follow-up questions after that.
So, since I started my career with mostly an experimental idea, we were pushing something that was untested in the market. It was highly speculated whether it's going to work or not. A lot of high stakes were involved in adapting the system, meaning which if you fail, you are not just failing as a solution provider, you are tanking government operations significantly. The option to fail was minimal. So I kept doing it, and the leadership that I worked under, they kept having newer ideas that they can ask me to help launch to the market. Once that happened, I moved on to different companies, and once again I came across a lot of pioneering ideas that they said okay, we don't know whether it's going to sell, we don't know what price at which it's going to sell, and they would leave me at that, right? So the projects that had a very limited chance of succeeding, plus someone who was wild enough to take on assignments, which if you fail, you could lose your job. Luckily, that combination was me. I didn't care about losing my job, and I didn't worry about failing. And the challenge motivated me, and it's something I stumbled onto and had been consistently working since I started my career. Eventually, it became apparent that what I work on is concept to commercialization journey. And a chance event happened. I came up with a brochure for someone, and that brochure basically had this Go Global as a main highlighted term in there, and it was very successful. The meeting that happened, and people were very appreciative, and just clicked that okay, probably I need to work with that name, and that's how I ended up creating this company called Go Global.
101.
101 got tagged in because I couldn't find the domain name. Somebody else had it.
Yeah.
And I recently looked them up, and they seem to be doing very well. So yeah, my moniker is GoGlobal101
Mm-hmm.
and .com, and I do have a couple of other brands: GoFarm101,
Go
GoHunt101.
farm, you said,
Yes,
and go hunt.
yes.
Okay.
And we also have something called as GoGo Grocery 101. Each one has its own vertical focus, but they are all integrated into a singular agenda. And where I am in terms of professional position or as a company, the kind of projects we take on, they cannot be executed by a single team. It requires multiple verticals to come together, and you work on engineering, that is engineering design, design for manufacturing, it's innovation management,
Mm-hmm.
strategic marketing. You also have to be able to have conversations with investors, be able to adequately prepare your investment decks. So everything that takes a concept to its fully commercialized state is something we ended up doing, and we keep on doing it. So it's just been a very consistent part of my professional life,
Mm-hmm.
and also became my own personal passion to work on. It's something I thoroughly enjoy working on.
Yeah. It seems like when you are excited about something, you stay focused and you'll just keep going
Yes.
until it's done or something.
Right. So, yeah, that's been the case right from the start. And as I said, like, when I had my first success, I did have opportunity to reflect on why that happened. What did
Mm-hmm.
I do different from everybody else? So my boss did say that I had single-handedly done about 33% of company's revenue at that time, and they had 200 people in sales. So if I had contributed to one third of the company's revenue with 200 people in sales, I had outperformed everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And what was so different about me is I just went and did what I was supposed to do. I didn't have two cells. I mean, I only had two brain cells working for me. That's about it. And I was functionally dumb. I just took it there and then I just hammered. Everything was a nail and I was a hammer. I just kept hitting at it. So if you can simplify something to one line statements, and if you can have a repeatability of what you are doing, I think that just works. The lesser the complex statement or lesser the complex value proposition, easier it is for people to accept that, and it just works from there.
So, see, I have so many questions after this, but um, one of the things I wanted to touch on too is AI, because you obviously have, I mean, you have a lot of tech background and experience, and you've dabbled with AI and everything, but you probably have a more, it's machine learning, right? And I'm gonna botch it because you go ahead and talk about. Is there anything that you can talk about with the different projects you're working on now that you're happy to mention on this show?
So AI, as we know it, is the newer language models or newer algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
AI has been around for many years. It's neural networks, fuzzy logic, among other things. And the people I ended up working with, my partners, they have had experience building component to component level intelligence or intelligence within chips, machine intelligence, precision machines, special machines, and those kind of things for a good period of time. That falls into the category of what is called as computational engineering. Now, they have done work which led to PhDs. So my mentor, he has 6 PhDs, 4 in metallurgical sciences, 2 in automation. When they take up an assignment or when it's to build a machine or something, it doesn't exist before they build it. Nothing like that exists before they build it. Uh, the approach they take is having to go down to the field to the lowest common denominator and then start understanding from there. Because if a solution has to be brought about, it has to be well thought through, right? And that is a discipline they have built over a period of time. And I'm lucky enough to have had that tutelage for me. I spent I've spent about 8 years now under their supervision and guidance on building solutions, making plans, being able to work with multiple disciplines of engineering
Mm-hmm.
to bring about a single solution.
Is that what parametric ideation is?
Yes, parametric ideation basically is before you start putting the engineering in place, right? It's like, if you have to build a building next to a seashore with high winds and everything coming at, you can build a model and emulate that model of, waves hitting it, the airs, going in and passing through the building, and see if the structural integrity of the building is going to sustain. That is how you would do it. And I think such kind of models do exist in the US. Before they build some of those iconic buildings or bridges, you can probably go down to New York or some other place, see those models. It's still in existence. It's built before the actual stuff is built. With the advent of technology, you can actually emulate that in software. You're not putting anything into physical aspect. Now, when you're taking a concept and trying to see where it will go, there are methods by which you can construct the whole thing and figure out what are the problems you can have, what are the futures it has to have, and models and everything it has to have. One of the methods I like to use is called as D-step analysis. That is demographic. I probably will butcher it now, but it has D is for demographic, E can be environmental, ecological, or something. S is sociological. Once again, T is technology, and E is either of the two, economy maybe, and P is for political.
Okay.
Now, imagine you want to build an app, mobile app, and does it have any political significance? Is a question do you think most people ask. Zuckerberg is famous for saying that he never assumed that his Facebook is going to be influencing politics. Right. Now, what if you are able to figure that influence on the idea that you have just had? What degree of growth it could have its full maturity before it is even built? This analysis method allows you to do that.
Okay.
And it's not a very complex analysis method. You can do it fairly quickly for any given idea.
So you're saying like if you basically could predict what this technology could potentially affect, sociologically
Yes.
and politically,
Socioeconomically.
political impacts,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Socioeconomic, political, technological, demographic. It will also allow you to figure out, who is your desired persona for a customer, who is an unfavored persona for your customer. So there was a project that we ended up working on, and the clients we had, it literally started with somebody like a Mrs. Universe coming in as a client, but we had no realistic, way to handle their expectations. So, for lack of better word, you were attracting divas. It would have been ideal to work with consultants or one single person driven companies, but it was attracting that type of clientele, people who are like influencers and stuff. That is a disfavored persona. The idea works; they are willing to pay, but are you able to address their meet their expectations? The answer is no. We are falling short significantly. So what do? Either you shut down the idea, or you just say no to that type of client. Now you actually have a client qualification aspect going on within your sales process. So what's your background? They say I'm an influencer. Sorry, we can't do anything for you. If you're a book author, yes, we can do something for you. So that type of things comes into play, and it's critical part of your commercialization journey. It influences your success drive or your ability to succeed or scale practically everything else. So these things you can figure it out while you are at the start of the concept itself, and this is what goes into parametric ideation.
Do you have a similar process for business partners and founders? Like, will this be a good match?
So
to avoid the headache and drama that comes with it.
I do, and it's on a case-to-case basis that I implement that. One of the things I usually tend to ask is, I'm sure you would have come across people asking about your vision, among other things, but what I like to ask is, what does failure look like for you or for your venture? Like, what is the worst case scenario for you? Because that's where I would like to start my conversation with. we have this belief system that now you need to fail fast. You don't want to prolong your suffering if you're going to fail. And any idea could be softly commercialized, or it can be validated for its commercialization capability, more or less. I wouldn't say any idea, vast majority of it, within 6 weeks. So if you fail to commercialize in the first 6 weeks, or even let's say take twice a time, 12 weeks, you probably should not pursue the idea further from a commercial standpoint, unless you have a lot of money to burn and you can afford to invest long time in that. That's just my working theory, and that's something that we try to help the founders or people with ideas come to terms with. And if you're commercializing within that span, it's a fantastic learning point. You know exactly what is going to sell. It gives you a ability to pivot your ideas into markets that you originally didn't think was possible. It has happened many times again. Like with the first company I ended up working, they started as a clipping service, ended up becoming a information listing for service for tenders. One of the recent assignments, they built this customer loyalty product. Their idea was it's going to be used by young kids for their entertainment, meaning getting drinks, buying movie tickets, and whatever the young kids are doing. Guess who became the largest consumer base for the product?
College students.
Middle-aged men
Oh.
buying groceries.
Oh.
So that influenced entirely different vertical of service.
Yeah.
And the data basically showed that 79% of the key users were middle-aged men. And amount of money they were spending was a lot higher than their original intended audience, 10x higher than that. So
Yeah.
your idea worked, just not in the way you thought it was working. And it worked better than you expected it to be. So, yeah.
I know the time is going by so quickly, and we might have to have a part 2 at some point. But I would like your advice in general, like with negotiations, because that's one of your superpowers. What would you say made deals happen? And you're having to deal with really difficult people, right? So you've represented, or do you help set up those deals, and then you helped also balance what both parties wanted?
So negotiation is a science of its own kind. There had been a lot of literature that's been written on it, right? So earlier days negotiations were on warfare. People were like, the only time a negotiation would happen is when both the sides were at equal power. If there is an unfair advantage on the other side, you're not going to get taken seriously. So even if you have to negotiate, you need to come to a position within that conversation where you are at least at equal footing. That means you have established your value in business terms, and they see a point in having a conversation with you. You are not somebody that is disposable or can be ignored at that moment of time. So that's one of the basic things that you need to remember in a conversation. So if you're trying to sell and there is a bargain happening, it's not effectively a negotiation. If the client is trying to give you or make you, give a lower price than you would want to go for, you have many ways of basically working with that. But if you're buying something and it's from a vendor, it's the other perspective. There you have various control points and various methods available to you. If you're doing it in a professional environment or an enterprise scale environment, there are mechanisms. So for instance, you can get them to auction among themselves. You do a reverse auction on that. You can get them to compete on technical levels, their technical competencies, support levels. You can weigh their technical strength with the commercial price. It is not necessary that the lowest price quoting person is the best price vendor for you. And same thing goes for the customer who is asking for the lowest price or is giving you the highest price is not likely the best customer for you, because they would have very different expectations when they give you that kind of a payment. So From a approach perspective and the discipline perspective of negotiations, knowing a few things, specifically in terms of types of contracts, helps your process. I come from a procurement background, so I knew about contract types. So we have index price contracts, we have transformational contracts, we have framework contracts. The regular ones most people are aware of the time and material types, where like you get paid by the hours, and time and resource. And then there is fixed price, right? What if you became aware of remaining 5-6 methods of contracting, which your competitors are not aware of? That's a knowledge-driven advantage I carried, and then I was able to effectively use this in winning some bids or negotiations. It would also allow you to, basically predict what your landing cost could be 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. It has very much of I'm sorry, it's becoming a bit nerdy, but it has formulas, mathematical formulas to do that. You can calculate for inflation and then be within the ballpark of 15 to 20% variation in your estimates, or probably much lesser than that. And a lot of buyers prefer that. They like to know what it is going to exactly cost them and what is that they are getting in that service. Focusing on the deliverables, the response quality, being able to assure them on the thoroughness of your plans, your proposals, those things comes in handy. One of the things I've been told is, like, if you make a pitch and there are no questions after you made the pitch, that's a good thing because you've been very thorough. If there are minimal questions, the better the situation. That means it's likely to go through. So people who go very detailed into their pre-sale activity and their analysis activity, who are able to plan for everything within the solution, they implicitly, they kind of communicate to the other person across the table that they have come prepared. And that type of preparation builds a lot of value for you. Now, we have to be more context specific when you want to be talking about negotiation, right?
Yeah.
So negotiation could be between an investor and a company. Why would they want to invest in your company? That's a conversation that could be one. It could be a customer and a buyer. It could be the other way around, a vendor and a purchaser. Or that's basically the odd number of combinations in the space.
Yeah.
From a negotiation technique point of view, there are at least 256 combinations in there.
256 techniques.
Yes, it's a permutation combinations that's possible. And you can apply that, and as I said, it becomes very nerdy at that point.
Nerdy?
I don't want your buyers to be like, what is he talking about?
Well, because my ADHD brain will like have 4 or 5 questions lined up, and then
Please.
But one of the things that I noticed, because being able to sit in meetings with you, which has been really great, because I've been learning a lot too. And at a high level, I could just mention it was a really great conversation where we were looking at some options between two parties. And I saw egos were getting riled up on both ends, but you were very neutral and you were helping just get everyone to understand the main point. What are the key things that we need to focus on and where we can actually meet even ground, like you said. So it was neat to watch. So is your style like that?
So it just became that when you're doing deals, apparently sales is different from doing deals or deal making. All that you're doing in that process is managing egos.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's what I noticed.
and if there is millions and millions of dollars involved in that conversation, trust me, the ego comes in very naturally. Removing yourself out of the equation and being the guy who doesn't, sweat whether the deal happens or not is a interesting psychology that I've realized helps. One of the key techniques, coming back to negotiation, that I have found is useful is that you don't bring your personal frustrations or immediate agendas into the conversation. If you bring that into the conversation, you are kind of, at a disadvantage. The other person can take complete benefit from that. So let's say I need to make a deal happen. If I don't make the deal happen, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. My children are going to go hungry. I don't have kids, but if
You
that's a kind
have
of,
dogs, though. You have 2 dogs.
I have one.
Oh,
One
yeah.
unfortunately passed away.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm looking to adopt another dog, but so yeah. So what I realized is, in some cases, people would be coming and saying, please give me this deal, otherwise I'm going to have this problem. They will take full advantage of you at that time. They're not going to be like benevolent with you. They are looking for everything that they can benefit out of you, right? You don't want to do that. And if you think you're going to undercoat, so I've seen scenarios where people who are 40 plus and suddenly finding themselves out of job after having had exemplary careers, excellent track records. Now instead of charging $350 an hour, they are saying I will just pay me $35 an hour. In your mind, you might think that, okay, I have reduced my price, now we should give the opportunity. The other person is thinking that if I give him that or give her that opportunity right now, the moment they find the opportunity that pays them the fair price, they are going to abandon me and leave. So they will think of it as a risk situation rather than a, what do you call that, as a beneficial deal for them. So by undervaluing yourself or by expressing your frustration in a conversation or in a negotiation, it doesn't serve any purpose that benefits you.
It's like showing all your cards on the table.
Yes, and yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yes.
Would you say that if someone feels like they don't have the expertise or the strength to do that, it's better to bring someone else in to, or hire an expert like yourself to do that?
It would be prudent. I mean, one of the key things about leadership position, I mean, if you're a CEO or a founder of a company, you can compare yourself to be a, let's say, Viking on a ship. Either you are going at it on your own, or you have people who can manage the journey for you. And you can't build you can't build a fortress with a carpenter alone, right? So you have to have other skills, people who are more competent than you in your organization come in and join you. Every great leadership I've seen are people who were never intimidated by somebody who was more talented than them. They knew how to work with them. So if a leadership is more worried about somebody better than them coming into the company, it usually does not lead to a good outcome. Or the growth of that company is somewhere stagnating. They might be immensely talented, but only so much talent you can carry. At some point, your skills and abilities stop being the main reason for you to grow. It's the relationship you build. It's the people around you that help you grow. And that's a thing that you need to recognize very early on and be always on the lookout to be able to attract the right kind of people to help you along with the journey.
So with Go Global 101, is the idea that you have several startups and you're also mentoring, it sounds like, and you're helping people commercialize. Because one of the first questions I was asking you, you're so generous with your time. Can I just pay you with something? You were giving me a lot of great advice. But I know you have multiple partners, you have unlimited resources, it seems, in multiple ways. And with parametric ideation, it's like you can go in so many different directions. And building the things that you are building now, I've seen all the different projects. Maybe not all of them, but I've seen several. How are you able to maintain all of these things and see things through? Like, I know you stay focused on once you're excited about something, you stay focused and you get that done. But
it's as I said, it's kind of a sprint. If you take up an assignment, you want to see if you can commercialize it in the 6 week span or about 12 weeks worst case scenario, right? Giving an absolute focus on something at that point of time is prudent. The lesser distractions you have, the better it is. So you do one thing and then be good at that one thing for some time till it reaches a point when like you can say, hey, this has worked, this has not worked, let's do this, right? And it happens a lot of times and it fails. And again, the quality of my experience has been very rich. It's not the duration, just the opportunities I've been able to work on and the people I've been able to work on. A lot of brilliant people, a lot of highly experienced and accomplished people were there to guide me. I was able to experience their work firsthand and build my own knowledge base. It helps that I'm a rapid learner. So, if I'm able to spend some time behind something, it's because one, it has convinced me that it's a good idea, and now it's become a niche that I had to scratch. I kind of become obsessed at the point, like obsessive compulsive disorder kind of a thing. Why is it not working, right? So this has to make money. Why is it not making money? It becomes a problem that I need to solve, or the tree I need to climb. It's probably the tallest tree, next tallest tree that you have to climb. And that drive kind of kicks in. When you're doing it, you don't want to worry about competition. And you naturally want to position yourself in a point where like competition is irrelevant. So it becomes very strategic. And incidentally, the name for that is called as blue ocean strategy.
Yes.
Right. So I kind of try to maneuver everything we do for a company or a organization into that space where like what they are doing is very unique. And if it reaches to a negotiation point, you're unique enough for the other person not to have value for you. So they kind of recognize the value you're presenting, and that's when the conversation is happening. It becomes more of a high potential winning conversation. If all of those things fail, that means, okay, it has failed. So it's best not to pursue and do this. You might want to step out and then work on something else. Which is also why I ask, what failure looks like for you when we start a conversation with people. And I mean, if you're not too emotional about failing on a venture, it is good. It's something you've tried, it didn't work. It's better to walk off. You walk off. That's a good advice to have.
Yeah. They call it founder syndrome sometimes when they have to let go of something, an idea or something,
Yeah.
and have a hard time letting go. So I'm going to wrap up soon. And one of the things, and I wanted to mention and highlight, you are also volunteering in a sense. It was you support veterans. Is it student veterans at FSU?
Yes.
Yeah.
The veterans who are graduating from FSU, they have this, what do you call this?
It's like a,
Unit or a department.
okay.
It's led by a Colonel William Francis. And one of the chance conversations we had, meetings we have had, we recognize that the veterans are at times finding that there are not sufficient opportunities for them, and they are struggling to land good opportunities. It is also a situation where, like, you spent your years in the army and you managed millions of dollars worth of assets, hundreds and hundreds of people working under you in a very disciplined ecosystem, and you come out of it and suddenly it's not there, and it's not translating into a corporate career resume. You have limited options, either go into something to do with security or security related operations, or become a Department of Defense contractor, a middleman for suppliers and such. So is that the role you want to do? I mean, there is obviously a lot more capabilities you carry. That's a problem conversation we had. That's the nature of conversation we have had. And I recognize that what they carry is an inherent organizational development skill and a leadership ability. Given a problem, they can be completely relied upon to solve that problem. The problem could be undefined. I mean, it's not going to be written in somebody's resume that I've solved this exact type of problems. It could be very, very unique for the organization. But these are the people that can be trusted to solve that. And with the advent of AI at the level that it is right now, a combination of those skills with AI becomes very vital when deployed, very potent when it is deployed. And we look for opportunities where we can help organization troubleshoot their problems through the deployment of such veterans, and we augment the veteran operation with advanced applied technologies, that is AI and IoT and among other things, to bring about a overall solution to the company and hopefully generating a sustainable opportunity for the veterans.
That's great. I love that. Is there anything else that you'd like to include in part of this episode and help spread the word on what else that you're working on? Is Go Global kind of like it's almost not Y Combinator,
No.
but it seems like you're helping startup founders come up with the right idea that is scalable. Because you might get a pitch deck here and there, and you'll say that's not going to work, right? You'll know right away it's not going to work.
Not right away. I mean, I'm not dismissive of any ideas. Who am I to say it's not going to work? It's the passion ultimately that wins, right? I think there was a TED talk that I recall when they measured, how people have been successful in what they did. It came down to grit, someone who stuck to it, come what may, which is an important lesson, right? But again, I've also seen stand-up comedies, probably someone like Chris Rock mentioning or Dave Chappelle. Like, if you're passionate about something, don't pursue it if you're not talented in it.
Yeah.
So does your passion, make
Great
money?
example.
Yeah.
We've seen plenty of wannabe comedians try to go up on a stage.
Oh yeah. I seem to make some people laugh, but not when I'm making a joke. People only laugh, when I'm telling a tragic story. It seems to get better laugh.
Yeah.
So
No, in one of our first conversations, you said you recently had a heart attack and you had a smile on your face, which I wanted to bring up too, is you have some recent personal challenges, but hopefully you're much better now, and obviously you seem
it's
fine.
just it was a random blood clot, stuck in the artery, and I remember waking up and the nurse basically having this kind of and she had this arms like this and said, "Buddy, you're gone." I wouldn't forget that. It was something, and I remember cracking a joke about it. So what that experience did, and again I had a second one 3 months after that. This time around, I was luckily in a hospital, getting a checkup, and then said like, "Oh, you could die any moment." Like, really, really, is that bad? Like, I don't feel anything bad. And like this, like, are you sweating? Are you feeling weakness? No, I'm just feeling normal. I don't know what you're talking about.
So they caught it at a good time.
Yeah, and had to go through another procedure. What it did for me from a thought perspective is I stopped lingering on ideas. Rather, if you have anything that you wanted to pursue, to just do it, kind of mindset. The hesitation on decisions became significantly less. So, which is what you probably are witnessing. If I'm inclined to do something, I just go ahead and do it. One other thing is, if you decide on doing something, don't wait for somebody to give you, or don't wait for just about anyone to even bother to look at it. It's your dream, it's your responsibility to make it happen. And if you fail at it, be happy. If you succeed, be happy. But being happy helps in getting anything done, really. That's probably one thing that we can conclude at is, if you want to be successful in life, figure out how to be happy first. That's a key differentiator. Miserable.
Yeah, keep going.
No, misery or anger and other frustrations or even worries don't seem to help. I tried being frustrated, or I tried being worried, and after worrying for some time, I realized it didn't give me any solution. I'd rather chose to be happy and then be my own idiotic self. If you can go around your life living like a minion from the Crew movies, it would be fine. You don't have to worry about being a very smart guy. It's easier to be the dumb guy in the room.
I'll take that. I love that advice. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm sure I could keep going and ask you more questions because you probably have so many stories, but I wanted to have this interview set up this way because it is really a bunch of multiple reasons why we ultimately ended up meeting, which was great to find that you were subscribed to CityClips for 6 months prior to seeing each other in person. So shout out to Eddie for recommending for you to subscribe because you're new to town.
Yes.
And then when we had our initial coffee, I appreciated how you said you really liked the newsletter and it showed you a little bit more about what's going on in town and Tallahassee. And so yeah, I appreciated that you even considered, that the newsletter was valuable to you. So
Yeah, so the city clips, it's interesting thing, right? Nowadays you get mails, and all that you want to do is unsubscribe from anything that comes to you. You don't want to receive email that makes no sense, right? So your time is more spent on subscribing. In your case, I had to subscribe because it had the kind of information that I was looking for, and it's a very well compiled information that is frequently available. And it's something that gives you a window into what is happening in the city. And if you're new to any place, that type of information is always something that a person in my position would want to have, or people in who are moving to a new city would like to have. So it's a wonderful service here that you are providing, and I see a great value for that.
thank you. That means a lot. And I appreciate you taking the time to do this episode.
My pleasure. Thank you.